Welcome back to another video. As you can see, we're going to be looking at some of the top free agents and where I think they will go. Season ended, maybe a few days ago, and I know a lot of people are bored. It is boring, no basketball, and it's a lot, harder to make content, obviously, without basketball. So, I'm trying to bring as much content as possible. I know a lot of people are bored. So we're going to be taking kind of a look at free agency. I know the draft still is, got to happen and all that, but I think I wanted to be kind of one of the first people to do this, so I'm doing this a little bit earlier. So as we get into it, obviously this is just a list of the top free agents for anyone who doesn't really know. Before I get into all that, some of these guys we won't really go over because I don't think they will be on the move, or I don't think there's someone that it's even a question. Like LeBron, I don't think. I mean, maybe there is a little bit of questions, but I don't think he's going to leave. I think he will go back to the Lakers for sure, accept his player option. Tyrese Maxey, obviously, he's a restricted free agent. They're not going to lose him at all. Like, trust me, they will not let that guy leave. Harden, I don't think will be moved. I think he's already been, he's been on so many different teams at this point. I think he's at a spot where it makes no sense for him to leave. Quickly, RFA, Nick Claxton, I think will be the first guy on this list to be the next player to sign like a extension with a team before he actually hits the open market. So, Nick Claxton, we didn't really go over. A lot of these other guys, some of them it doesn't make much sense to really go over, as I think they will return to their teams. And next, or to start, I should say, we have Paul George. As you can see, I have him going to the Philadelphia 76ers. If any of y'all watched, y'all probably seen the thing with him and Joel Embiid at the finals where, Joel Embiid was kind of side-eyeing him, talking about, like, adding talent to the team. I think it makes a lot of sense, too. Like, him going to the 76ers, they have a lot of money to spend in free agency. Looking to obviously add to this team as they've been basically in the same situation for the last who knows how many years, and they can't really get over the hump to try to win a championship. I think Paul George is definitely a good addition. I don't know. I mean, I have in the other destinations the Clippers and the Knicks, but I definitely could see where he doesn't return to the Clippers because, it basically hasn't worked out. He's been there for a few years. They haven't really had much traction. I could see him leaving. I could also see him going back. And then the other destination I have is the Knicks, team that just had a really good year this year, and I could definitely see them trying to add, more talent, especially where, kind of a spoiler later in this, have a guy that I think will be leaving their team, which means really good replacement, obviously, in a player that is better. I could definitely see the Knicks doing that. It would have to be, I think, something like a sign and trade because of the money. But I think it definitely makes sense if he were to go to the Knicks, possibly, if not the 76ers. So that's kind of the first one. It's something that everyone, I think, kind of basically thinks about, or at least knows that he will possibly go to the 76ers, so it's not too crazy. Next we have DeMar DeRozan. And this one, I don't want it to happen, but, as a Bulls fan, as someone who likes the Bulls, I think it will happen. I really think that DeMar is going to re-sign with the Bulls, and I don't want it to happen, but I think it is going to happen. And it sounds like a nightmare. They just traded for Josh Giddey, and having them on the court together doesn't sound too well in terms of shooting the ball, and also the development of Josh Giddey, someone that needs the ball in his hands, basically. DeMar DeRozan, someone that gets the ball a lot. It just doesn't make sense, but something tells me, based off how this organization has been ran for the last, however many years, it's going to happen. His other destinations, I have the Clippers, Heat, and Thunder. Clippers and Heat, money-wise, it would have to be a sign and trade with, maybe Norman Powell and the Clippers, his contract. I could see something like that happening. He is from LA. I can see him going back. which honestly I really hope something happens where he doesn't go back to the Bulls. But I don't know. Something's telling me that I'm being too optimistic about him leaving. And I think, all the reports I've seen, it sounds like he's going to be back on the Bulls. And then the Thunder, they still have a lot of money to spend. I mean, now that they just got Caruso, I don't know how much after they probably will sign him to an extension could change that. But I think the Heat also, looking to add another player if they're trying to compete. I don't know with the Jimmy Butler situation about, trade rumors and stuff. But I think ultimately he might go back to the Bulls. And I don't know how much I really, like that. But just being realistic. Next, we have basically my first, real prediction that I think is a little bit more out there and maybe not something that everyone thinks. But something crazy happens basically every free agency. And I don't think this is super crazy, but the Knicks, I obviously can see him returning to the Knicks. But they haven't, he hasn't liked a lot of their offers that they've given him. And the Spurs have a lot of money to spend in free agency. And I think they're going to go out and try to get him. It all depends also, I think, with the draft, too. They do have, 4 and 8, I think it is. And I don't know. I mean, I've heard rumors that they could trade up for number 1. And regardless, at 4 and 8, I expect maybe at number 8 they draft a wing. And maybe that could change this. But overall, I think OG Anunoby is a really, really nice fit on this team. He seems like a Greg Popovich guy, if you ask me. I'm not going to lie. It just seems so, like a Greg Popovich type of player. But, yeah, I think OG Anunoby could be a player that attracts a lot of money in free agency, and the Spurs have a lot of money to spend. He also isn't too old to where he doesn't fit their timeline. So, I could definitely see a world where they go out and get OG Anunoby, and I think they will end up actually doing it. Other destinations, we have Thunder, 76ers. 76ers, basically, I think, with the money they have, could be a backup plan if they don't, get Paul George like I expect. Then for the Thunder, maybe not as, enticing now that you get Alex Caruso. But I still think that they have a lot of money to spend. Maybe they go out and try to get, a good wing. Who knows? But I think ultimately the Spurs will pay this guy a lot of money. And he might go to the Spurs. Next, another guy kind of like DeMar DeRozan, where I'm pretty sure even the fans want him to leave. If you go on Instagram, all you hear is Klay Thompson 0 for 10. Klay Thompson 0 for 10. And I don't blame you. I think for the Warriors, they need to move on from him for his career and for the team. I mean, something has to change. But something's telling me that it's not going to. I feel like it's going to come down to loyalty. From everything I have seen and heard, the Magic were the top team to get him, and the Thunder. Problem is, Thunder just got Alex Caruso, so I think they're not as interested. And the Magic, from what I've heard, the offers they've been giving him basically have not been much more different than the Warriors' offers. And he didn't like basically the Warriors or the Magic's offers. And so I think it's going to come down to loyalty, and I think he's going to choose the Warriors over the Magic if he's getting basically the same contract. So those are two teams I still have as other destinations. 76ers, kind of like I said, with, the situation with Paul George and OG Anunoby, another guy that I think could be a backup plan. And then the Lakers, it would have to be, I think, a sign and trade to make the money work, possibly. I've heard a lot of things. D'Angelo Russell, he could decline his player option as he will be actually the next player we go over. But, yeah, I think that, the Lakers could definitely use him as they're, I'm assuming, trying to make a change since they basically had the same team for a year and a half. I expect something different aside from the coaching. Next, we have D'Angelo Russell, though. And anyone who knows me, D'Angelo Russell is my favorite player. And I think he declines his player option, and I think he will end up signing with the Magic. I think this is a guy that he's going to try to go get money in free agency. Me being a D'Angelo Russell fan, I do know that this guy does really like Florida. Every offseason he is in Florida. I'm not gonna lie, so it makes even more sense there. Actually, I'm pretty sure he lives in Florida in the offseason. I don't know, but that's just a guess. Anyways, yeah, with the Lakers, I mean, I could see them make a change, and I think maybe this is like a sign and trade situation where the Lakers don't lose him for nothing. But it would obviously suck for the Lakers to lose him after possibly they were thinking about trading him at the deadline. And then, he goes out, tests free agency because I think he's worth more than what he's being paid. And then he leaves for nothing. So that would suck for them, but I could definitely see him opt out and then get paid more by them. But I don't think he's going to accept his player option. I don't know. We'll see. But I think the Magic, it makes a lot of sense. He's in his prime of his career. He fits their timeline as someone that he can come to this team and be a veteran point guard, but not too old to where he doesn't really fit their timeline. And I think it makes a lot of sense going to the Magic for him and for the team. For the other destinations, I have the Spurs, Jazz, Pistons, and Lakers. Kind of already went over the Lakers, but for the Spurs, Jazz, and Pistons, and maybe you could even add the Nets here, I think are all teams looking to possibly go out and spend money on a guy. And with D'Angelo Russell, if he's going to decline his player option, he's looking to get paid. And for that reason, I think a lot of these teams looking for, just talent in general for the Pistons. And then for the Spurs, I think they really are looking for a guard. I really think they could end up paying him a pretty good amount of money. And I don't know, we'll have to see. But I have him going to the Magic. I really like this fit. As a D'Angelo Russell fan, I honestly really hope it happens. I just think it's a really fun team to watch, especially if they add, someone like D'Lo. Next, we have Tobias Harris. And this is another, kind of free agent destination that I feel a lot of people have kind of talked about. And this is him going to the Pistons. I think it's pretty good odds it happens. I have in the other destinations the 76ers, but I don't think he's going to return to the 76ers at all. And then the Spurs and Hornets I have as other destinations. I don't know. Tobias Harris doesn't seem like a guy that is trying to really win. Maybe I'm getting that wrong, but I think he's just trying to go get paid. Doesn't really care as much about winning, and I think a lot of these other teams, like I have the Spurs, Pistons, and Hornets, are definitely, I think, teams that they have the money to spend, been in kind of a rebuild, and they're trying to get out. And a good veteran is definitely something that would help with that. But I think it will end up being the Pistons. He's played on the Pistons before. I'm like 95% sure, 99% sure. Unless I'm tripping, I'm pretty sure this guy's played for the Pistons before. But I see him going back to the Pistons. And yeah. Next, we have Buddy Hield. And I have him going to the Bucks, which to make this work, it would have to be like through a sign and trade or something because of the money. But if you look at some of the other destinations too, a lot of the teams are going to have to try to make it work money-wise, aside from the 76ers and Magic. The Suns, Nuggets, and T-Wolves also don't really have the money. It would have to be, through like sign and trade, something to make this money work. But a lot of things have been kind of pointing to Brook Lopez possibly being out the door and then moving on from him. And with him getting paid, I think, around $20 million, definitely is a guy that you could see this happen with, where Buddy Hield, is in some kind of sign and trade, assuming it would probably be a 3-team trade because I don't see him going to the 76ers. But, yeah, I could definitely see him going to the Bucks. They're about to lose Malik Beasley. Definitely have an open 2 spot now with Malik Beasley likely leaving. And you basically get a better Malik Beasley and Buddy Hield. And I think it's a good fit. It makes a lot of sense. For the other destinations too, I have the Suns, Nuggets, T-Wolves, and Magic. The Magic kind of correlating it with my other things. If they're going to get D'Angelo Russell, I don't think they end up getting Buddy Hield. And also for, I think, Buddy Hield, I think he wants to really win a ring. So I think he's going to go to one of these really, really good teams. And the Magic, I don't think, are there yet. And so I think it makes, less sense even more so. And then the Suns, Nuggets, and T-Wolves, they're all going to have to try to do something to make the money work. But I think it's obviously a good fit for all the teams. It's more so about making the money work and figuring out how it's going to happen. But I'm not an NBA general manager, so it's not really my job currently to do that. Obviously, if we went deep into it, I could probably figure that out of what would have to happen. But we're not getting into that today. We're just going over where I think people are going to go. And I think he's going to the Bucks. For the last guy of this video, which, basically just the top free agents, or at least in my mind, top free agents, I have Jonas Valanciunas going to the Thunder. As you've seen his other destinations, for every other player, I basically have their former team, at least in it. For this, I don't. I'm not going to lie, the chance he returns to the Pelicans is almost a 0% chance. It might even actually be a 0% chance, I think. This guy basically lost all his minutes towards the end of the season. And honestly, to me, it didn't make sense. I think he's been really, really good. And I think because he lost so many minutes, he's going to end up getting on a pretty cheap contract, or, the mid-level exception, I think, is where he actually might get paid. And I see him going to the Thunder because they're looking for big bodies. I think he's a really good fit. It makes a lot of sense for him to go to the Thunder. But I could also see, kind of like I have here, the Lakers, Grizzlies, Nets, and Pistons. The Nets, I think it makes the least sense probably, but I think it's if, for whatever reason, Nick Claxton didn't return, which I think is very, very unlikely. And then the Pistons, just looking to add talent. Maybe he comes off the bench for Jalen Duren. I don't know. And then for the Grizzlies, they traded Steven Adams. They traded Xavier Tillman. You can see him go back to the Grizzlies as he's played there before. And they do definitely need a center. And then the Lakers, I've heard a lot about them potentially moving AD back to power forward and trying to look for a center. And I think it would make a lot of sense to also get Jonas Valanciunas. He does also somewhat space the floor, as he can hit a three. It's not like, knockdown shooter, but for a center, he's a pretty good three-point shooter. But I ultimately think he will go to the Thunder. I think it fits exactly what the team needs, and I think because of that, it's also going to be a situation that he would really like to go to, assuming it is on the mid-level exception. I think this is a place where he could definitely go, and he could definitely increase his value if he does, get another contract. Obviously, he is relatively an older player. That being said, maybe he's just trying to get, longevity on his contract. I don't know. I don't know what he's trying to look for in his contract, but I think the Thunder is definitely a team that I would like to see him go to, and I think will be trying to get, Jonas Valanciunas, as he's probably the best center that's on the market that's available, really. I mean, there's Isaiah Hartenstein, but I think it's basically a lock he goes back to the Knicks. Maybe. I mean, I've heard the Thunder were looking to get Isaiah Hartenstein, but I think he's going to be going back to the Knicks. So, yeah. But that's the last free agent. I went over, I don't know, maybe like 6 to 8 guys. I don't know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So, yeah, we went over 8 guys. Kind of just, a few of my predictions for the free agency. Obviously, you can maybe come, look back at this after free agency is over and see if my predictions were right. We still have a lot of the offseason, though, left. I mean, we still haven't hit the draft, so that could change a lot of the plans with a lot of these teams. But those are just my predictions. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Your favorite, prediction for the offseason in terms of free agency, or, if it's one of your favorite teams, someone that you want them to go sign. I do want to hear, some other people's opinions of what they think is going to happen in free agency, as to me, this is one of my favorite parts of, the offseason and just basketball in general. I like to see free agency where people go change it up, different players, different teams. But yeah, so that's really it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one.